What if I told you that diabetes isn't really a blood sugar disease, and that much of what we've been taught about how to manage it may actually be making it worse? Today's guest is going to unpack what he believes metabolic disease really is and why it has exploded over the last 70 years, and most importantly, what people can do to reverse it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Life TV Now, where we unpack all matters of truth, faith, and freedom. Today's program is set to be absolutely dynamic, but before we dive in, let me introduce who's here. She's an integrative nutrition health coach with a Master of Science in Health Education. Please welcome my co-host, Jamie Woodle. And he's a doctor of pharmacy with over 35 years of experience who completed a pediatric residency at the Medical University of South Carolina. He has spent 29 years as a clinical pharmacist and the author of the best-selling book, Your Plate is Your Fate. He now promotes disease prevention and reversal and is dedicated to helping others embrace true health through nutrition education. Please welcome Dr. Steve Hughlett. Dr. Steve has written a book that I want you to make sure that you check out, and we'll bring this up on the screen for you. Your Plate is Your Fate, a simple guide to understanding how your food choices lead to more and more medications. Dr. Steve, is that not the truth? What we're seeing in Western civilization in particular, with this new gimmick to lose weight, to manage their metabolic disease.
Right.
Doctors across the nation are pitching products that interfere with digestion, that want to increase insulin resistance. We're talking about GLP-1, glucagon-like protein 1. Now, you probably have not heard it packaged that way because that's a very scientific and kind of boring title. But these popular medications, to which we're not going to bring up on the screen or make note specifically of or identify by name, to me, it's one of the most dangerous wagers that people are making in terms of weight loss. It's one of the most dangerous wagers that I see perhaps playing into the dismantling of the pancreas. And so that we're not just being esoteric and kind of losing people in the weeds here, before we dive into that, briefly tell people how you became such an advocate for natural health. And then let's get into metabolic disease. You know, most people think of things like diabetes as hereditary, or that's what they're told. But this has a lot more to do with the dinner plate, doesn't it?
Without a doubt,
and these get thin, quick medications that I fear we're probably less than a decade away from seeing a lot of commercial types. If you or a loved one have been damaged by X number of popular medications, you may be entitled to large compensation. You know, like with hernia meshes and a bunch of these other just dangerous games of roulette. How did you get started?
It started because I went to school for 12 years. And then I started working. I did my pediatric residency, then I started working at the hospital. And I worked there the next 29 years. Pediatrics is my specialty, so that's what I went to school for. That's what I did the first half of the time that I worked at the hospital. And then the last half, I went to the second shift. I worked the supervisor shift. And when I was in pediatrics, they were... Once a year, we would have an annual pediatric seminar, and they would come in and we'd talk to all the medical professionals in the area about certain things. And I had talked to like about 4 of those back when I was in peds. Once I became a supervisor, I never talked again until about 3 years ago. And they called me and they asked me if I'd talk again. And I told them yes, you know what, tell me the topic. And they said childhood obesity. And I thought, okay, I can do that. So I went through put this whole slide presentation together about, you know, how if you want to lose weight, you got to eat less calories, exercise more, and talked about the food pyramid and all that. I thought, just for the heck of it, I'm going to go back and go to the literature, see if there's anything out there. And once I went to the nutrition literature and found out there is so much information that we were never taught in school. Never. And it's all about how to prevent, how to reverse, how to stop disease states. And we're not taught that. We're taught how to treat symptoms of diseases. And so I went ahead and I totally redid my talk, gave the talk. Afterwards, a bunch of the medical professionals came out and they said, we have never heard this stuff before. This is great. Can you write a book? So my wife took my talk and we got it transcribed. And so now that's kind of my passion is I want to let everybody else know what was hidden from me. And this is not about your physician by any means. Don't think this, because they were not taught this anyway. They weren't. He said, if I need to get more people, then I need to start a podcast. So we started a podcast, and then we have some digital programs, and now we're just trying to get the word out to as many people as possible.
Well, I had the benefit of meeting you last October at the Secrets in Healthcare conference, along with John Richardson of the RNC and Dr. Brian Ardis and so many other speakers and contributors. I want to hit the ground running because these episodes fly by very quickly.
Sure.
GLP-1s. I can't tell you how many Facebook reveals I've seen, housewives and mothers and men, and they're talking about their GLP-1 journey, and they're kind of chronologically organizing with pictures of themselves, their weight loss and all of this. But a lot of people are not talking about the potential long-term side effects of what we honestly should be treating through diet, lifestyle, exercise, movement, the dinner plate. They are everywhere right now, the GLP-1s, the talk, the scuttlebutt, social media. Look at me, I lost 40 pounds. Can you explain to the person that's still like, okay, stop saying the word GLP-1 unless you're going to explain it to me, what it is and why you think people are taking them for like blood sugar, air quote, management, type 2 diabetes, weight loss?
Okay. I kind of need to do a base for just real quick base so you just kind of understand what is happening with our body.
Build a foundation.
Yeah, because when we eat food, our mouth and our stomach sees the food, but it chops it up. Our blood doesn't see the food that we're eating. All it sees is the molecules that it gets broken down to. So anytime you eat protein, that gets broken down to amino acids. So that's what our body sees is amino acids. When you eat fat, it gets broken down to fatty acids. So that's all you see is fatty acids. And when you eat carbohydrates, all you see is glucose. And all carbohydrates have a basic building block of glucose. And carbohydrates just means plant-based foods. Anything that comes from plant-based foods, they contain carbohydrates, so they contain glucose, some more than others. But our body doesn't like glucose. So what happens is we eat this, our intestines turn it into the fatty acids, amino acids, and the glucose, and then that gets absorbed into our body. The problem is our body doesn't want glucose. So as soon as our body senses that we've got that in our body, our intestines release this GLP-1 hormone. Okay, it's a naturally occurring hormone. It does two different things, three, but two main ones. It basically paralyzes the stomach because it wants to keep the glucose in there as long as possible because it doesn't want high glucose. So it paralyzes the stomach for just a short term and slowly lets the acid in the stomach take care of that and slowly trickles in, because the slower the glucose gets into your blood, then the lower your insulin levels. And this is all about insulin. Insulin gets secreted because of glucose in the blood. So that's what our natural hormone GLP does when it keeps in the food, it lets it trickle out, but then it gets your body producing insulin, because once the glucose gets in your blood, insulin is what gets it out of the blood. It doesn't make it just disappear. What it does is, the main thing it does is it tells the liver to turn all that glucose into triglycerides. So if you're having trouble with high triglycerides, it's because you're eating too much glucose, which means you're eating too much carbohydrates. So your body, GLP-1, it stimulates the pancreas to produce more insulin, and it paralyzes the stomach. Both things are there because it wants to get the glucose out of the blood. But your natural only lasts like 2 hours. So after a meal, after it's all out of the stomach, then you have another hormone in your body called DPP-4. And what that does is it blocks GLP-1, and that allows your insulin levels come back down and allows your stomach to start working again. That's how our body's supposed to work.
You guys following so far?
Does that make sense?
That's the natural, organic, native process when you swallow food. But now scientists have showed up with a much better way of doing things according to their prognosis, correct?
According to how much?
I'm being facetious now. It's another one of those areas where men have figured out, hey, if we hack the body, we can produce this end result. But we're kind of the experiment, aren't we?
Oh, my gosh.
Like, we don't really know yet. There's no post-mortem of a decade to look back yet, right?
And our body, we do not know our bodies at all. I mean, all these scientists and doctors and all these studies that we do know, all we're trying to figure out is, what did God do here? And it's really, really bad, because what we found is you fix one little thing and it messes everything up because our whole body, our inner body is talking to each other constantly. All our cells talk to each other.
Right.
Just like we talk with nature, we talk with each other, talk with the air. We are all in communication. We are all built as energy together. And that's all we're trying to do. And that's why when you hear about taking medications and they talk about the adverse effects, they make it look like some drugs may have 3 or 4 adverse effects. That is not true. Every drug has 30, 40, 50. These GLP-1s, they have over 70 different adverse effects. And adverse effect means a harmful effect. We made this drug to fix this one thing, and it's harming all these other things in the body.
But you see the evidence of weight loss in a lot of people that have done the yo-yo dieting thing that, like Jamie Woodall often talks about. They're seeing the results. They're doing their selfie pictures, and we're living in such a vain, superficial society that I suspect, and I kind of sympathize, but some of the people that have really struggled with this are doing it for reasons of affirmation.
Yes.
They want to be handsome or they want to be pretty, and it's because society has made everyone feel like they're not valuable if they don't have so many subscribers or so many followers or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to derail, but so you've explained the way God, designed for our bodies to work. But now we're playing this whole game out called GLP-1.
Right. And so now with the GLP-1, the GLP-1 that our body produces is called a hormone. But the GLP-1 that the drug manufacturer are producing is actually from it's called a peptide, which means just a small protein, less than 50 amino acids. It's a peptide that was found in the venom of Gila monsters. So they found that this peptide that was found in the venom of Gila monsters, they found that stimulated the same GLP-1 receptors that our hormones did. The difference is it has a half-life of 7 days. So where our natural one only lasts a couple hours after you eat, and that way you can bring the glucose down, but then you bring the insulin back down. We have these GLP-1s that these people are producing that actually they stimulate, so they paralyze the stomach for way longer than it's supposed to be paralyzed. Then they also raise your insulin levels way higher than they're supposed to be, and keep them up, which is the problem of diabetes in the first place. It's high insulin. It's high glucose is just a symptom of having high insulin. And then the DPP-4 that our body naturally produces to inhibit that so it can come back down, we actually have drugs now that block DPP-4. So again, we're trying to keep the insulin levels high. The reason why we're trying to keep insulin high is because that's how you make more diabetics. That's because all the drugs for diabetes works the same way. They work by either making your stomach or your pancreas produce more insulin, or they make your cells more sensitive. Both ways, they focus on getting the insulin up, and that's what makes diabetes worse. And I've got all kinds of proof on why that is. But so as far as the GLP-1s, that's the main thing. This food stays in the stomach for so long, it starts rotting. And they have GLP-1 burps, is what they call them, because it's rotten food.
Oh, my word.
Surgeons have told patients to stop eating like 8 to 12 hours before a surgery, and they do that, and then they go in and they do surgery and found out there's food in the patient's stomach that's been there from a meal they had 3 days earlier.
Now they have to ask and find out so they can change that time frame.
Yes, which could be lethal. I mean, if they go under anesthesia, they could aspirate that and everything. So we're keeping food in. It's totally tearing up our gut. All these antacids, all these antibiotics, all these GLP-1s, all these medications. People's GI tracts are so messed up right now because of all the stuff where we're screwing with what God's done and we don't know what we're doing, and we're starting to feel the effects of it.
It's like a butterfly effect, really. You change one thing, like you said, and you have all these other problems. I just think we need to not try to play God when you change one thing and then you end up with all these others, when there are natural ways, like addressing what's on your plate.
Yes. God's given us everything we need. Everything we need. Why do we think we're smarter and we can outdo that? It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, some that would be a fan of believing everything is malevolent. I often refer to the whole pharmaceutical kingdom as, Babylon. But again, that's not to disparage the many good doctors that are there because they picked up that profession. They really want to help. They want to heal. I usually hold the pharmaceutical companies and the people that write the academia that these people are going to learn from more responsible for what that whole apparatus is.
Right. The way people are losing weight with these GLP-1s is not the way you need to lose weight, because there's a big difference between weight loss and fat loss. And what they're doing with the GLP-1s is they're just not eating. And you have to eat. You have to give your body nutrients, and that's why we haven't been giving our body nutrients for so long. That's why we're hungry all the time.
Oh yeah.
So what happens is everything in our body, everything you touch, that's protein. It's made out of protein. Your skin, your muscles, your bones, everything, our hormones, everything's made out of protein. And fat. We use fat in everything. Fat, all our cells are made out of fat. Fat's for cushion, thermostat, thermal regulation. Fat's soluble vitamin, everything. We need that. And what happens is normally if you eat this, your body knows exactly what to do with all these chemicals. When you take these fake GLP-1s and you take that and it just keeps it where you don't eat, that's true. You don't eat, so you're not eating fat, protein, carbs. You're not eating of that. So your body's going to get that. It's going to save all its organs. And it will, just like you can cut off your arms, cut off your legs, you're still going to function. The body knows that. It's trying to preserve the organs. So when it needs energy, if you're not eating it, then it's going to get the fat out of your fat cells for your energy source, which is exactly what we want to do. That's the way we want to do. That's the way God made us, is eat the fat. But you're also not eating, so it's breaking down your muscle tissue to get the protein for all the things that your organs need, all the things our hormones need. So you're losing your muscle. So most people on these GLP-1s are losing over half the weight they're losing is muscle. You do not want to be losing muscle weight, because as you get older, falls are one of the biggest reasons why people end up at the hospital and actually end up dying after they do that. So you've got to have strength. You need your muscle. You need grip strength. You need leg strength. This is all important. So when you're taking something and all you're doing is not eating, what you basically do is you've turned your body into what's called auto-cannibalism. It's eating itself from the inside out. You're not giving it the protein. You're not giving it an energy source. You're not giving it the vitamins and the minerals. And chances are you're probably not drinking enough water either. So you're actually eating yourself from the inside out. And there's no reason to do that. Because if you eat metabolically the way we're supposed to eat, and this leads into diabetes, this is everything. Again, when you think of what our body's made out of, protein, fat, cholesterol, vitamins, minerals. That's it. That's it. That's all we need. We do not need to eat carbohydrates at all. You can actually go your whole life, and I know people have done it, and they're well into their 90s now, and they never put a plant-based food in their mouth. And I'm not against fruits and vegetables. I'm not saying that. That's God-made food. There's man-made food and there's God-made food. Man-made food is toxic. It's nothing but glucose, and seed oils.
Right.
And like flour. Flour is just powdered glucose. So when you eat that stuff, and this is what causes diabetes, you eat this stuff, again, your intestines are turning everything into amino acids, fatty acids, and glucose. When you eat nothing but carbs all the time, which is what most of us do anymore, because that was our old dietary guidelines, thank goodness those have changed now. But when you do that all the time, your body's trying to figure out, what do I do with the glucose? What do I do with it? So you're eating it, you put the glucose into your body, your blood levels goes up, your insulin levels goes up. So what actually happens is you have glucose, your body produces insulin. Insulin tells the liver, turn all that glucose into triglycerides, into fat. So now you have all these triglycerides in the liver, and it has to get it out of that. So it packages it in this little, I call them fat mobiles, VLDLs, LDLs. The doctors, they tell you that's cholesterol, and it's not. These are lipid little machines. These are little lipid boats or cars, whatever you want to think of, and they carry the triglycerides and the cholesterol that your body makes, your liver makes, all around the body, because it's vital. Cholesterol is vital. It's not this horrible thing that they're telling us is. Cholesterol is vital, fat is vital, but you can't throw fat into the blood, so it puts it in these little fat mobiles and carries it around. What happens is when you're eating all this glucose over and over and over again, which people do, they eat it every 2-3 hours all through the day for decades.
Part of our culture now.
Right. When they do that, so the body's sitting there thinking, what am I supposed to do with all this glucose? So it turns it all into triglycerides, packages it in the little fat mobiles, carries it around, and starts putting it in a fat cell. So if I'm a fat cell and I'm sitting here, and one of these fat mobiles, a VLDL or LDL comes through, it puts the triglycerides in the fat cell, and the fat cell starts to swell. Well, it keeps doing this for decades, for years and years. As you continuously eat glucose, this fat cell swells. When that fat cell is totally full, that fat cell is called insulin resistant. That you can't put any more triglycerides into this fat cell. That's insulin resistance. So there's nothing wrong with the cell. There's nothing wrong with insulin, nothing wrong with your pancreas. Your pancreas is producing plenty of insulin. It's proper insulin. Your cell's working. The fat cell is too full. And that's insulin resistance. Now, what happens is you have fat cells all over our bodies. So that's why you don't just eat sugar right now and then all of a sudden die. We would know, oh, that's something you stay away from. But since we have fat cells all in our bodies, we keep eating this sugar and flour. Flour is just powdered glucose. That's all it is. So it's all glucose. So as you keep eating this glucose over and over and over again, and you put that in your blood, your body's turning into triglycerides, and slowly you start filling all the fat cells up around your bodies. And as the fat cell gets full, it's insulin resistant and goes on to another fat cell. So pre-diabetes, when you're healthy, you eat glucose, your glucose goes up, your body produces insulin, glucose comes down, and so your insulin levels come down. That's the way you want it. Pre-diabetes is when you keep doing this year after year after year, you keep eating glucose, and your insulin levels go up and up and up, but they're keeping the glucose down, but it takes more and more and more and more insulin to do that. That is prediabetes. So you're in prediabetes for decades before. Having an A1C of 5.7 to 6.4 was a marketing technique to get more people on diabetic drugs. That has nothing to do with anything, because what happens is your insulin levels are doing this, and then all of a sudden, you're slowly filling up all your fat cells, fat, and now all your fat cells are full. You can't do anything else with it, so now your glucose levels go up. Well, when you're talking about the medical community, they say that's when you have prediabetes, is right here when your glucose start going up. You're way late in the game when you're doing that. It's still reversible, but you're way late in the game. But that's pre-diabetes, is because now all of a sudden your glucose up, and that's when all your fat cells are full. And the deal is, everybody focuses on how do you get the blood glucose down? How do we get it down? We got to do it with this, got to do it with this. And the question that nobody's asking, and this is when you have 100% control over, is why is it going up in the first place? And there's only two reasons why your blood glucose goes up. Is it takes it from your stores, which you only have 10% of your liver and 1% of each skeletal muscle. You don't have very many glucose stores at all. That store is supposed to be there for your fight or flight energy. So the way God made us is that we have fat in our fat cells. We eat, we stuff fat in our fat cells, and then we go for times that we don't eat, which is another problem. We used to have long times we didn't eat, and now we don't have those times anymore because there's food everywhere, well, quote unquote food, Frankenfood everywhere.
Right.
So what you're supposed to do is you eat the fat out of your fat cells for your energy, and then all of a sudden there's a fight or flight, some kind of stressor, whatever that is. All of a sudden, I need quick energy. So your cortisol, your stress hormone, stimulates your pancreas to put glucose, or to make your liver put some of the glucose stores. Again, only 10%. There's like 400 calories. That's all the storage you have in your liver. It tells you to put that into your blood. But what's supposed to happen is you get the glucose up, you use that glucose for that quick energy, and then all of a sudden the stress is gone. Your glucose goes down, your insulin comes back down, and you start eating the fat out of your fat cell. The way we're doing it now, because of our dietary guidelines that came out in 1977, telling everybody, oh, carbs are what you're supposed to eat. Remember, we're made out of protein, fat, cholesterol, vitamins, and minerals. We are not made out of carbs. We do not have to have those at all. However, food from the food manufacturers is made out of carbs. It's all made out of plant-based foods. They can't use animal. So that's why they tell everybody animal-based foods is horrible, even though God's given us this food, from the beginning. Right. And so that's where we run into the trouble of, now what do we need to do? And all you need to do is quit eating glucose. If you want to bring your glucose levels down, okay, don't think about bringing them down. Think about don't put it up in the first place. I just talked to a guy 4 weeks ago, and he'd heard this. He's a physician that I used to work with. He's been a type 2 diabetic for 17 years. He's been a type 2 diabetic. He came to my talk, he changed everything, and he quit eating plant-based food, stopped all man-made food, stopped eating that. He contacted me 3 weeks later. He said he is off all his diabetic medication. He's off all his insulin. He's off everything. Because, again, given diabetic medication is making your insulin levels higher. They want you to focus on that. So just like the GLP-1 agonist, they have you focus on weight. Oh, your weight's going down. But your weight loss is going down because you're losing fat and muscle. Yeah. And they say, oh, your sugar's going down. Well, that's because your insulin's going up. So they have you look at the wrong things.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we were never going to squeeze everything that you need to know about all of this talk about metabolic disease and type 2 diabetes and where your genetics may play into factor and where they don't, and what doctors have told you is maybe hereditary and how that is or isn't maybe the case. But I do want to make you aware of where you can get a copy of this incredible work. We're going to bring this up on the screen. If you want to get your own copy of Your Plate is Your Fate, you can do it right now at edensessentials.com. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to throw in this package, my book, Unlocking Eden, Revolutionize Your Health, Maximize Your Immunity, Restore Your Vitality, and the companion DVD, Unlocking Eden, which features Daniel Belt, Dr. Ralph Umbriaco, my father, the late, great Dr. Thomas Horn. All of that in a package right now for only $42 plus shipping and handling. Friends, this is a $60 value. Yours right now, including Dr. Steve's brand new book, Your Plate is Your Fate, for $42 plus shipping and handling. Go to edensessentials.com. The book will do a lot more than we can in a 30-minute episode like this. Before we close out, I know Jamie had something she wanted to ask you.
Dr. Hughlett, for our viewers who are watching and they are inspired and they realize I need to make a change, what would you offer them as to next steps that they can do to get on their way to reversing their metabolic disease?
The main thing is focus on what you're eating. That's the whole thing. Definitely stay away from anything in box, bottle, bag, and can. All this man-made food is nothing but chemicals, and it's toxic to your body. So when you're talking about fruits and vegetables as where you get your glucose, just think the plants that grow below the ground are going to have a lot more glucose in it because they have starch. That's nutrients for the plant. The ones that grow above the ground are going to have less glucose. They'll all still have it. But if you can just definitely stay away from all sugar sweetened beverages, go to water, unsweet coffee, unsweet tea. All this fruit juice and all that is just lethal. It's all nothing but glucose. And our whole body, if you look, our whole body only has 2 teaspoons worth of sugar in it. That's how much our bloodstream has.
Right.
So it doesn't take very much glucose. So stick to the plants that grow above the ground and stick to water and stay away from all the sugar sweetened beverages and these plants that have a lot of glucose if you're already having issues. And the main thing is get your insulin tested. And you can do that on your own for $15. Order the fasting insulin, and my wife did it. She had the results back in less than a week. It only cost $15. So that's how you're going to know if you're type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, is looking at your insulin levels, and your doctors are not going to know that.
But mostly you probably would see some improvement just taking some of the advice that you've already articulated today, even without having your insulin checked. And of course, eating right.
Yep.
Your Plate is Your Fate.
Oh.
What a clever book cover.
Yeah.
I love this.
That's good. I would definitely say if you're not eating the fruits and vegetables, you should be probably taking an organ meat supplement or eating organs.
Yeah.
It's really hot right now. You see a lot of health trends towards organ meat for the minerals and the nutrients. Dr. Steve, with just about a minute on the clock, if you're watching this program and you've heard Dr. Steve say something about, wait a minute, so I'm not supposed to have plant-based foods just in total? It's way more complicated than we can get into in just a minute, but maybe just a quick bullet point of what you mean when you say, avoid plants.
Yes, fruits and vegetables are fine. Fruits and vegetables are good. You do get vitamins and minerals and stuff out of that. However, just remember that they all have glucose, so some has more than another. If you are diabetic or pre-diabetic, have been classified that, you might want to stay away from the ones that have a lot of glucose, which is the ones that grow below the plant, below the ground. But fruits and vegetables are fine. If you go out, think about the same thing. The main thing when you go out to eat is the fried, the oils they fry it in, and also the buns.
Sense.
Buns like that, French fries. Yes, that's glucose, but it's the seed oils also. So when we go out, we'll get a big hamburger. We just take the bun off and we'll replace the fries with buttered broccoli. So now we have mainly meat-based product. We have it's all God food. It's God-based food.
Right.
It's not the man-based foods.
Yeah.
Right.
Eating out is very, very difficult with
Yes.
everything being cooked in seed oils.
Everything.
It feels impossible to avoid it, even if you choose really healthy foods. It's what they're frying it in.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, did you learn something today? How many of you want to see Dr. Steve Hughlett back on Life TV now? We have so much more we can cover, and you're going to want to join us next week because we're going to be talking about cardiovascular health. Huh? Unfortunately, we're all out of time for everybody here in studio, everybody up here on panel. Dr. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Joe Artis Horn. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus Christ. We'll be back. Join us next week on Life TV Now.
Our body has to have cholesterol. You've got to remember, drug companies it's a business. They're there to make more money. It was a scam to get more people eating their stuff.